Hello and welcome to the Run Today podcast. I am your host, Nick Simmons. With me as always is Kamala.
Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a great day wherever you're at.
Absolutely. Man, how many episodes are we up to? Over 30 now.
Over 30, yeah.
Incredible. And
fun.
We've had so many great guests. We've had authors and entrepreneurs, athletes and coaches.
Yeah.
I don't even know where we should go from here. What do you think?
I know. I'm wanting to hear more of the motivational speakers and those people. I think
they give me
fun.
the goosebumps when
totally.
they give us their nuggets of wisdom.
Give me those one-liners that are gonna inspire me every morning. So I'm really
think I would say athletes, right?
Yeah,
I want to hear the entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I love just the sacrifice that they're willing to make, the way they're changing our world. I love hearing their stories.
Yeah, but we want to hear who you guys want to hear from. We create this content for you wherever you're going, whether you're on a drive, whether you're on a run. We want to create stuff that you're going to love. So shoot us an email, podcast@rungum.com. Nick and I receive those emails and we want to read them. We want to hear from you who you want to hear on this podcast so that we can bring them on the show.
Absolutely. And today's guest ticks all the boxes.
He does.
Not only was he an athlete, but he's also an entrepreneur. He has one of the most impressive resumes I've ever seen. He was the head strength and conditioning coach for the Los Angeles Lakers, who just happens to have a PhD in physical therapy.
Yep.
Who does that? It's incredible.
I don't know. He's so smart and does it all. He's so versatile in all these different areas and is just so passionate about people and seeing them succeed.
And he's a fly fisherman.
And that's why Nick liked him the most, I think.
Yeah, I got a soft spot in my heart for all the fly fishermen out there.
Yeah.
But seriously, this interview is incredible. He's got a great attitude. He's got a jaw-dropping resume, as I've mentioned. You guys are going to love this one. It's Tim DiFrancesco. All right, here he is coming to us from Salem, Massachusetts. It's Tim DiFrancesco. Tim, how are you?
Great, thanks. It's exciting to be on.
How's Massachusetts today?
A little chilly out here. It's windy and chilly, but I don't know. I just keep telling myself that just makes us stronger.
It does. It's a beautiful state. You can survive the winters.
It is. Exactly.
You grew up in that area of the country, though. You were born in Vermont, I believe?
Yeah. Yep. Vermont, born and raised. So grew up in a really small town in Vermont. No traffic light there, and graduated with about 49 kids. So that just gives you a little context.
Wow. Very small.
Yeah. Small.
What was it like growing up there?
You know, as a kid, I think you just figure where you're growing up is what the rest of the world is like until you realize there's a lot out there. And so it was a really, looking back now, though, a really great place to be able to grow up and have a lot of things at your fingertips that walk out the door. You got mountains, rivers, ponds, lakes, whatever it is. For a kid, that could be pretty fun in the winter, all the snow sports in the world. And so as a kid, it's a pretty darn good place to have everything, all that stuff at your
I've always been a Mountain West, Pacific Northwest guy, but when I visit New England, it reminds me so much of the West Coast of the United States. You know, that outdoor feel, the mountains, the rivers, the ocean. I 100%. Feel at home when I'm up there.
100%. I think it's maybe the everything's a little smaller. The mountains are a little bit shorter, and
the towns are a little smaller.
Yeah. But it's just a different scale.
What did you like to do? Is it just getting outside and being active, or were you involved in team sports from an early age?
A little of both. I was as a real youngster. Actually, fishing was a huge passion of mine. I could.
Now you're talking my language.
Yeah. No, I would. I got into even tying my own flies.
Yeah, same here.
And, So loved that whole side of things, and still do. Don't do it nearly as much as I would love to, and I hope to get back to it more often now. But sometime down the road. But then team sports really took over. I think, especially basketball was. From a sport end of things, it was the passion, and it was my life's goal to play collegiate basketball and take that dream as far as I could go with it. And I ended up playing Division III college basketball at a small school here in New England, Endicott College. But
I know it. So, I ran D3 actually. Very few D3 athletes going on to run professionally in the Olympics, but it worked for me.
Right.
I think too often all of our youngsters think, I got to go D1. It's the only way to get to the top. And I'm like, there's a lot of programs out there. There's D2, there's D3, there's NAIA.
No doubt.
And really, it's about finding the program that's right for you and your priorities and your goals. What took you to Endicott?
Endicott has a great athletic training program, and I knew sports medicine was where I was headed for and what I wanted to be involved in career-wise, and also was going to be a place where I could play basketball on the side of that. And I knew I could, if I applied myself, I could walk onto the team there, and that's what happened.
Isn't that great though? Maybe you're not a 6'6" shooting guard, but there's a place for you where you can go on and play collegiately if you're not ready to hang up your shoes. And did you? Yeah. So did you pursue 4 seasons of basketball while you were studying hard?
Sure did. Yeah.
It's not easy.
No. In that major, in athletic training as a major, they recommend you don't try to do more than one sport because it just gets a little bit unruly. And I think that though was really key for preparation for me in terms of trying to figure out how to balance. And, you have to pull up your big boy pants when you go from high school to college in that setting, and you've selected a pretty rigorous major. And people think, Division III sports, it's almost like intramurals, and it's really not. I mean, the requirements and the
time requirements just the same.
Right, it's just the same. It's and so that was really key preparation for me.
I always look back on my college days, and I don't use I studied biochemistry, so we were pretty similar course load. And I just thought more than anything, it taught me time management, as I was running track and cross country and trying to get my degree with all the labs and everything that we had to take. I'm like, man, I learned time management first and foremost. And it was like you pull up your big boy pants. I had nothing but time in high school, and I had 0 time once I got to college.
Right, exactly.
But you I was deterred by it. I just felt like, oh my gosh, this is taking so much time and I'm not cut out for it. But you went the exact opposite. You doubled down and actually went on to get a doctorate in physical therapy.
Yeah, exactly. I think at some point during my time at Endicott, I knew that I was starting to connect the dots a little bit to what the end game was going to be and understand how I was going to be able to get in front of the biggest audience that I could to help them from the platforms of sports medicine, rehab, or performance preparation and training. And there just I just didn't see how I was going to do that if I didn't take the athletic training background I had from undergrad and really build on that from getting really nitty gritty into the rehabilitation phase of things for individuals going through a doctorate of physical therapy program. Seemed like it was absolutely necessary for me to understand that. I knew the end game was to get to be really good at helping people to be prepared for performance in some capacity. And I think performance can mean anything, but I knew also that understanding rehabilitation phase of the process, nobody goes through any sort of physical activity endeavor and feels great all the time and never gets an injury. So if you don't really understand at a deep level that rehabilitation phase of things, and then how do you transition from rehab phase to return to sport phase to training for sport phase and
performing optimally. Yeah. I've never in my life, and I've met a lot of elite athletes, I've never met an elite athlete that didn't get injured at some point in their career, right? And more than likely, at least an injury a season of some sort, whether it's a little minor ache or pain versus, full-on surgery. We've all had to come back from some kind of injury. And it's not saying that we weren't doing the prehab. It's not saying we weren't taking care of ourselves. It's just part of pushing the envelope that far and trying to be at that level for so long. So I love PTs. I mean, I couldn't have gotten as far as in my career as I did without them. I don't think any athlete feels that way. We rely on you guys to help keep us performing optimally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, I love that responsibility.
It is a huge responsibility. And so tell me, how rigorous was the course of study to get your doctorate?
It's rough. I remember midway saying, you know what, I don't know if I got this in me. Maybe I'll switch gears and open up a restaurant. I have a little side passion of food and cooking. So
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So I remember having a brief moment of panic and hesitation there because it was so rigorous, but stayed the course and sure glad I did. I don't think my culinary skills were what I was put on this earth for, as much fun as I have with it.
How many years does a doctorate in PT take?
3 years. So it's 4 years undergrad to get in the door, and then 3 years. So 7 in total there.
So you've invested 7 years of your adult life into studying this subject. And then what's your first job out of school?
First job out of school, working as a physical therapist at a traditional outpatient PT clinic, and just really trying to, in that sense, understand that whole insurance-based clinic setting for me was a really helpful experience. I think it was early on in that process I was aware that is not the environment that I wanted to use my tools in forever, but it was a really key one because it brought me exposure to a very wide audience of clientele and patients and different
athletes and elderly and people recovering from surgery and everything. Yeah.
All the above. So I think at the time when you're gaining little snippets of snapshots of experience, you don't realize what that's doing for you. It just feels like a penny in a huge piggy bank and then, over time you look back and you realize each one of those instances was actually really key toward in just building an overall kind of body of work of experience that helps in the long run.
Well, it's a wealth of knowledge, but it's also just this huge chance to learn your bedside manner, right? How do you talk to someone coming back from surgery versus an athlete versus an elderly person? I mean, what a unique opportunity to just learn how to communicate with people.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I think that it's probably the number one skill set that allows people in this field to either really reach high levels and flourish or not. And I think that experience combined with I worked as a kid growing up, I worked in some capacity at every possible position in my mom's catering business that she ran. And those people skills that I developed and the bedside manner and the ability to develop a rapport and a connection with another human being are you either have experiences in your past that allowed you to develop those and really be good in those areas, or you don't. And it's really hard to pick up on later on if you didn't have those instances. So for me, that was huge.
Well, and obviously there's the knowledge part that you went to school for 7 years for, but there must be, I'm going to call it a cheerleader side of you or a tough talk or coach side where you have to learn you're going to motivate somebody coming back or somebody trying to reach that next level. I know for me, I needed someone to tough talk me. I needed a coach to look me in the eye and say, you've got to work your butt off or you're not going to get past this. But some people can't handle the tough talk. Did you find that you really had to cater the way you delivered this news or this knowledge to people, to specific personalities?
Yes, exactly. And I think that I've learned my natural is to be just very positive, very supportive, very encouraging and take things gradually as they come and let them develop. But there are some people that doesn't do the trick. And I've learned to speak the language of the individual. During my time with the Lakers as the head strength coach there were certain players that you got to know them and you realize that it's going to require a come to Jesus moment, so to speak, with them to get them to reach where they need to go. Whereas others, it never needed. It could just be easy and flowing and supportive and positive all the time. And it's hard to have that moment for my personality anyways, it's not my natural to go to that kind of harder type of, yeah. And also just really being straightforward, straight to the truth of this situation and kind of having people put their feet on the coals a little bit in a really raw instance. But some people need that, and to have that ability to go there and to want to go there is the key. Anybody could go there. They could get frustrated or mad enough and just lose their mind. But to want to go there at the right time in the right way is, I think the want part is you have to want to be a coach. You have to want to be a mentor. You have to want to do that and really.
You really do. And I've had some coaches that didn't want the job and they were horrible.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned the head strength and conditioning coach at Lakers. I have to know, how did you go from the PT clinic to the Lakers? It couldn't have been as seamless as just teleporting to LA.
No. So basically the story there is as in around my third year as working at the initial PT clinic that I started out of school, I had my former high school basketball coach contact me and was looking for anybody in my network who was interested in being an athletic trainer for the team that he had just taken a position with in the NBA minor league, which was at the time the D League, the developmental league. Now it's the G League, the Gatorade League. But that league was just sort of in its early stages at that time and was essentially the start of the minor leagues for the NBA. And, he caught me at a time where I had really was looking toward how long is this first stop on my career path going to last? I'm kind of exhausting what I can get out of this particular clinic setting. I was also on the side beginning to start TD Athletes Edge and its early iterations of things and my own business there, and was really at a good transition moment. And I said, yeah, you know what? I would love to do that. And my agenda there was to just get experience in the team setting and working in that. I had worked in the clinic setting. I had worked in sort of the entrepreneurial side of starting my own thing. I had done some different places, but not anything formally in that team setting as using my expertise there, and really was looking forward to that. So the next thing I know, I'm driving across country to Bakersfield, California, and spent 2.5 seasons as the head athletic trainer and strength coach with the Bakersfield Jam. And they were affiliated at the time with the LA Lakers during one of those seasons. So there was some overlap and some communication between myself and the head medical staff folks of that team of the Lakers. And at the time, Gary Vitti, who is a legend in his own right, and just recently stepped away from his time with the Lakers after about 33 seasons as the head athletic trainer there. And so he was looking for somebody to be in the weight room, in charge of the weight room on the Lakers staff, that also had the ability to speak and act on from a physical therapy perspective. So
it is a really unique resume that you have, and that's what jumped out at me first and foremost, was that you have this doctorate in PT, but you're we're operating as a head strength and conditioning coach. It's very, very rare to see somebody doing both of those things. How did you get so good in the gym and you're this whole new unique set of knowledge that goes into being a strength and conditioning coach? Was this kind of like a lifelong journey that you had, or did you go back to school, or how did you build this incredible resume?
I think so. I think it's all the above. I think as an athlete in my own right growing up, I always was intrigued about, I was always the least athletic, or the least, I would always outwork everybody. That was never a question for me, but I was always had to do that to be on par with the other teammates that I had and competition that I had, to just be on par with them. And I really enjoyed learning how to do that for myself and finding edges and things to say, well, they're athletically gifted in certain ways that I'm not, but if I can find ways to out-prepare them, or I can be on par with them and put myself in a position to compete with them and be successful doing that. So that was always fascinating to me, and I always wanted to be able to help people do that. And once I got through the PT curriculum from PT school, I knew at that moment that I had kind of set the table to have a really good understanding of, if I were to now change my perspective and say, most people graduate 7 years of school going to become a physical therapist, and they say, I'm going to be a physical therapist because that's what I just spent all that time and money doing. I actually wanted to then say, okay, this is where we start now, because now I get to take that unique perspective and turn it into a different pair of glasses that is, but how do you use that to be a better strength and conditioning professional, or a better performance training professional, and be able to put that, sort of combine that, but use that to support me from a different perspective. And I was okay with that. Most people are really not that excited to put all the 7 years of time and money into something and say, but then I'm going to go do something else with that.
Incredible. Yeah. And what were those first few years with the Lakers like? I mean, I can only imagine the hours that must go into it. I know how hard they train and they travel, but also dealing with the personalities and everything else that goes into being part of a team.
Right. That you brought up a couple things. The travel piece was something I never, in my 6 seasons there, never got used to. That's far more challenging than people would ever give it credit for. And you have this assumption as a fan of sport, of professional sport, to say, well, yeah, but they're getting paid lots of money and they travel in the cushiest ways, but it's not.
You're still on the road.
You're still on the road. You're still changing time zones, and a plane is a plane, and a hotel bed is not your bed. So it's challenging on the body. That was really tough. I think from my end, just the challenges of the position were the really kind of trying to understand, like you brought up, there's a lot of layers to it in terms of egos, politics, that kind of thing, that being able to you have to pick your battles. And for me, gung-ho, coming guns blazing, trying to show off this skill set and be a part of something that's pretty big and has a lot of gravity to it in the LA Lakers, and trying to navigate that and figure that out was something that I definitely learned trial and error, that you can't have all guns blazing all the time. You have to sort of prioritize, well, here's where I can make the biggest impact the best way. And these other five things that would be really great if I could get them to change or adjust or get better at, may not happen today, and some of them may not happen ever. But what's the one thing that is reasonable to expect, and how do you go about doing that in a way that is the least intrusive to patterns and habits and things that were there way before you ever got there?
I love that. I think it's so many times, when we try to affect change in our lives, our personal lives, or in other people's lives, we have this grand vision, and we say, well, we're going to have to make sure that we hit every single stop to make sure that we get there. And it's like, that's not how it's going to go. If you can pick your battles wisely, if you can grab some of that low-hanging fruit, there's a lot of metaphors for this exact reason. It's like do the change that's going to get the ball rolling. And I think that's what you were describing, is you've got guys who have been playing ball for 10, 20 years, and they're saying, hey, Tim, you can't teach me nothing. And it's like, okay, and I was that guy, right? I was the guy who was like, I'm indestructible and I can't get any better. And my poor coaches had to be like, okay, how are we going to level with this idiot?
Yeah. Exactly. So, some of those I learned the hard way. Some of them, it went okay on my first attempts. And it was just, by the end of the 6 years is sort of where I felt like, okay, I get this now. And ironically, that's sort of also when it was time for me to make a adjustment on what my next move was going to be. So, but
and I'm assuming that move is TD Athlete's Edge,
right? And
tell me, was it the travel that kind of wore on you, or was it just needing to grow in a different direction? What caused you to leave the Lakers and start TD Athlete's Edge?
Both. It's all of that. It's also the fact that I didn't ever feel like in that setting I was able to impact, and I wouldn't even say the entire. You're not ever, say the roster is 15 players, even saying you're going to impact 15 players' physical results in terms of how they're prepared to be on the field, on the court, is not even realistic, because you're just not going to get through at every level to every player. So let's say realistically, I was directly impacting in a very significant way half those players, and connecting with them in a way that was really fruitful every year, because there's a lot of turnover. So that number was too small for me. I needed to be able to impact more people and take my skill sets and apply it to broader audiences.
And you're doing that in a really impressive way. I'm looking at your Instagram page right now. For those of you who are listening, you've got to check this Instagram page out, and Twitter and YouTube. It's TD Athlete's Edge, and this isn't just like cute glamour shots of athletes looking pretty when they play their sports. This is functional information. This is how to strengthen your glutes. It's hip flexor pain and tightness. Here's one that's very applicable for a lot of our listeners. It's dealing with Achilles tendonitis. I mean, this is really, really good information, the kind of information that can only be put out by somebody with your vast knowledge on injuries, prevention, and rehab.
Sure. Yeah, that's the goal with that, and that's just one of the platforms. The in terms of Instagram or Twitter, especially Instagram, where I'm probably most active. But the goal there, the micro goal there of the content that I put through Instagram and those other social platforms, is to be able to do exactly what you said. I don't think it needs to be a secret, or it should be as confusing and kind of frustrating as it is for so many people to deal with some of these nagging chronic things that slow them down and take them away from their activities, and to be able to get them back to that in a way that it doesn't really take all that much. It just takes the right stuff, is something that I want to be able to share with people and help them with. And that's also, on a bigger scale, one of the foundations of why TD Athlete's Edge exists. And I tell this story a lot, but when I started with the Lakers, I had the opportunity to be involved in the return to play for Meta World Peace, and he was going through in the tail end of his career, but was going through some stuff that it was on the verge of frustrating, nagging injury stuff that could have sidelined him completely, and he wasn't sure about that, and he was uneasy about that, and it's not a fun place to be at the end of your career, wondering if this is going to be the last go around, and even though your mind and the rest of your body wants to, this one nagging injury area doesn't let you. So I'm part of this overall team of people, and Meta got back to the court at the end of the day, and kind of fast forwarding, I remember after that first game back from this rehab process and return to play process, he's coming around the corner into the locker room, and I hear him yelling my name, "Where's Tim? Where's Tim?" And I'm putting ice bags on other players' knees, and he comes around the corner, he looks at me, and points right at me, and he's like, that was you. And
Wow.
so
that's got to be so rewarding.
Right. I mean, I get goosebumps when I'm telling it to you, and it was really kind of, that's the moment that TD Athletes Edge exists for. And I want to be able to do that for more than just Meta World Peace. And I say that in the best possible way. He's one of my favorite people on earth. And it wasn't that was inadequate to do that just for him. But
I think it's almost more like you recognize what kind of power you now have. Not power necessarily, but this knowledge, and sharing it with 1 or 2 or 15 basketball players. It's like almost not doing your skill set a service. You need to get out there and help more people.
Right. And look, the point of the other part of that story is I was a little fingernail of an overall, it took a village to get him back to the court, but to be a part of a village and a team of people that helped him do that was the other side of what was really special. And that for me is the other side of TD Athletes Edge, that it is not just me. It is a team of people that have that are just so driven and are so compassion filled for that reason, to get to that feeling for anyone and everyone that we can reach is really what our goal is. It's a very touching thing to be a part of.
That's fantastic. How was it stepping out on your own and starting this business? I mean, one of the things you mentioned earlier that just stuck with me is when you were getting your doctorate and you went through what many, many people go through when they're trying to achieve a big, audacious goal. You went through the valley of despair. Yeah. When you said, I can't do this, and I'm going to go start I think you said start a restaurant. And, everyone who's done something incredible says they've all gone through that valley of despair. And that's why they have a name for it. Did you feel that at all when you set out to start your own business? Because it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I for sure. I could think back to some instances in year one where we're just, we're past year one of sort of this iteration of TD Athletes Edge in a physical location and facility standpoint and team of professionals that is beyond just me. And I think I can think back to instances in that where there's so much unknown in front of you, and just these certain numbers are not adding up in this very moment to say, okay, I feel great about where we're at, to say, yeah, there's definitely been those instances, but something carried me through those moments to get us to where we're at now, which is in a really exciting phase of growth and development, and things are starting to really line up together in a way that is very, very special for us. But something carried me through that is hard to put a finger on exactly what it was. It was just this level of belief in the overall vision that didn't have any really great reasons at that moment to have the level of confidence in that it had, but it just, something in my heart, my gut said it's okay you're not wrong to have this level of confidence and belief in this overall vision that you have, and to stay the course and just trust that, which is a scary thing in itself. But
it is. But it's one of those things where you've been through that so many times before, whether it was undergraduate or graduate school, or your first day with the Lakers. You go through this enough time, you say, I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like I always get through it, and it gets easier and easier. You begin to believe in yourself more. Yeah, definitely. And I think there's also a piece where the entrepreneurial puzzle is something that's fascinating for some, and the exact opposite of that for others. It's really not for everybody. And I think if you have to have all the answers and things have to be kind of really predictable and laid out for you, then this is not the environment. Say you're going to hang your hat. But for me, it's a puzzle, and I love the challenge of not knowing all the time, and then figuring out how you are going to connect the dots to the next step. I love that you called it a puzzle, because that's really what it is. Every day you're waking up and you have to solve a new puzzle. And some people really love the challenge, and some people find it incredibly annoying. And, I kind of fall somewhere in between the two. I think those days that I have high energy, I'm like, I can't wait to tackle today's problems. And there are days where you're just like, man, not another freaking problem. But the ones that seem to get through those rougher days, I think, they end up being lifelong entrepreneurs. And do you think that you will be a lifelong entrepreneur? Yeah. I love this. You love it. I'm a pig in slop. I love it, man. I love it. So I've saved the best question for last. What species do you fly fish for out there? Oh man, brown trout all the way. Yeah. That's like the ultimate keeper right there. We don't have a lot of browns out here, but it's a lot of rainbows. It's a lot of cutthroats, and you guys have steelhead out there? Not really, the brookies, but I'll take any of the trout. I'll take any of them. They hit and parachute Adams, or what are you tying when you're out? Wait, you probably don't have time to tie anymore, but what would you be tying?
Man, I haven't dove in on that in so long, but yeah, you get sort of like the mayflies and all the other stuff.
Seasonal,
yeah, exactly. So it depends on that kind of stuff, but it's I would love to have down the road here some
more time to fish.
Shift back over to that.
Well, if you ever make it out to the Pacific Northwest, we'll get you on some steelhead out here.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's what I do every weekend.
Oh my gosh. We're
spoiled. We're spoiled.
That's pretty special.
Well, Tim, man, hey, awesome chatting with you. Thank you so much for the time. It is just, as a former elite athlete, I just looked through your resume and I'm like, you are 3 or 4 people combined into one. I mean, the amount of knowledge you have gained over the last few decades is truly amazing. And on behalf of all elite athletes and everyone out there that you are able to help, thank you so much for dedicating your life towards helping people.
No, Nick, this has been great, and I look forward to it again anytime there would be value from your end. And we love to interact with folks, so please check us out on the different platforms that you mentioned earlier, and DM or send an email over to info@tdathletesedge.com. If there's anything we can do to help, we want to be able to do that.
Appreciate it. We will link all of those in the show notes. Tim, thank you so much again for your time. Have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Tim.
A big thank you to everyone for joining us on that episode. If you want to find out more or listen to other episodes, go to rungum.com/podcast. Also, please make sure to subscribe on iTunes or your preferred player. I'm Nick Simmons, and you've been listening to the Run the Day podcast. Until next time.